Morning.
Good, good. We are on Perek Ches. We left off with Gidon's victory over Midian with his 300 soldiers. So, Pasuk Aleph. Vayomru Navi Shoftim. Perek Ches.
Okay, good.
Pasuk Aleph.
Which Perek? Zion?
Perek Ches. Pasuk
Isn't
Aleph.
it chet?
Perek Chet.
You
Eight
guys,
Perek.
you guys don't read my messages. Why do I send the messages for?
Your message
you-
says,
I read it. I saw it.
excuse
You
me,
said
Mario,
7.
your message says 7, chapter 7. It's the wrong chapter.
No, chapter. Well, it's chapter 8. I'm sorry.
Close.
Okay, well
Chapter
we did chapter 7 last week. That was
You gave the wrong
battle-
page.
I put the page, so the page
Yeah,
was right.
but
But I know you don't
174.
use.
So last week we finished chapter Zion, chapter 7, which described the destruction of most of the Midian force by Gidon's 300 soldiers, and they executed Orev and Ze'ev, two of the princes of Midian. So the pasuk, the perek starts off very interestingly. Vayomru elav ish Ephraim. If you remember, Ephraim, remember, Gidon is from Shevet Menashe, but Gidon did not reach out to Shevet Ephraim, and the Shevet Ephraim are affronted by that. Ma davar hazeh asita lanu, livilti krot lanu, that you didn't call us. Ki alachta l'achem b'Midian, vayirivun ito b'chazka, and you did battle with them. And they argued with him severely. I just want to read Rav Steinsaltz's comment. The men of Ephraim considered themselves superior to the other tribes. Ephraim was a populous tribe with renowned warriors like Yoshua. They may have felt that their lineage was superior to the lineage of all the tribes of Israel. Remember that whole battle between Yosef and the brothers? They certainly considered the tribe of Menashe, Gidon's tribe, inferior to them. Remember? Shikelet Yado, right? When Yosef brings Menashe and Ephraim to their grandfather Yaakov, right? Yaakov switches his hands and he puts his right hand on Ephraim's hand. And we say, Yisimcha Elokim ke Ephraim v'chin Menashe. We put Ephraim before Menashe. Yoshua, the conqueror of the land, was from Ephraim, and his tribesmen felt a special affinity with him long after his death. Furthermore, Mishkan Shiloh was located in the land of Ephraim. Later, when Israel secedes from Judah, right? We're going to, Mirz Hashem will get there in Malachim Aleph, after the rule of Shlomo HaMelech, his son Rechavam. So there's a split, and Yeravam ben Nevat takes charge of the 10 northern tribes, and he's from Ephraim. And Ephraim becomes the seat and its capital. The new kingdom was founded by a member of Ephraim, and its capital was established in their portion. And this is not the only time that the tribe of Ephraim confronted a judge. We'll see later on, there's also, and there's violence that breaks out. On this occasion, violence is avoided as Gidon responds with humility and great deference to the tribe of Ephraim. Deference was what they sought, so they were satisfied with his answer, and they didn't take the protest further. Let's see how Gidon plays them off. Look at Pasuk Beis. Vayomer Aleihem. Ma'asiti atakachem. What have I done, me little Gidon? What have I done in comparison to what you have done? Halotov olulot Ephraim miftzir Aviezer. The Olalot are the grapes that are harvested last. The Botzi are the initial ones. And we're going to see that Ephraim were the ones sort of who cleaned up at the end after they chased them into the Yarden. He let Ephraim sort of clean up the mess. Look at Rashi. My starting off with Midian was nothing compared to your finishing them off. Says Rashi, Alov Tov Olos, Shabal Yatchem Basof. That which you did at the end, Mitchilat HaBatzir, Shabatzarnu Anu Mishpachti, that with me and my family, Menashe started, Sharei B'yetchem Nasan Hashem Et Hamlachim. The kings of Midian eventually fell into the hands of Ephraim. So Gidon is very diplomatic. He mollifies them. B'yetchem Natan Elokim Et Tzarei Midian Et Orei V'Tze'eh. Those two princes that we talked about, they fell into the hands of Ephraim. I would have not the ability to do what you did. So on hearing this, Az Raftarucha Me'alav. So their spirit rested, became softer. What do we see here? We see tremendous humility by Gidon. And this humility is going to point in a certain direction soon. Let's keep that in mind. Pasuk Dalet. Vayavo Gidon Ayardena. So Gidon actually crosses the Yarden with his men. Overhu ushloshmot ha'isha sherito ayefim v'rodfim. They're tired. They've been chasing Midian nonstop. And the Gidon comes on to two Jewish cities. Vayomer la'anshe Sukkot. Sukkot was a Jewish city. Rashi says Yisrael Hayu. That's how we know they were Jewish. And he asks them, Tnuna kikrot lechem la'am Hashem raglai. He begs them for some food for his soldiers. Ki ayefim heim. Va'anochi rodef achrei Zevach v'Tzalmunah malchei Midian. There were two remaining kings, Zevach v'Tzalmunah, that they're chasing after. Vayomer sarei Sukkot. Hachat Zevach v'Tzalmunah atab yadecha. Do you have Zevach v'Tzalmunah in your hands right now? Ki nitein l'tzvacha lechem, that we should give your army lechem? Vayomer Gidon. So Gidon is upset. Lachein b'teit Hashem et Zevach v'Tzalmunah biyadi. After Hashem gives me these two kings, v'dashti et psarchem, I'm going to thrash your flesh at kotzei hamidbar v'tabarkanim, with the thorns that grow in your town. Vayal misham Pnuel, and there was another Jewish city, Pnuel. Vayidaber aleim kazod, he spoke to them the same way. Vayanu oto anshe Pnuel kasher anu anshe Sukkot. The people of Pnuel said the same thing. Vayomer gam la'anshe Pnuel lemor b'shuvi b'shalom etotz et hamigdal hazeh. They were protecting themselves behind a high fortress. And rather than help, they also deferred and they said, we want nothing to do with you. So what's going on here? Why didn't they help? So the Abarbanel, I'm going to read the Abarbanel here. Ki mitnei shelo ha'eminu sheyatzliach Gidon lihitgaber malchei Midian. They were not convinced that Gidon, despite the fact that he had successes so far, they didn't have emunah that he was going to overcome the kings of the Midian that they're chasing. Lefichach yiru l'sapek lo tzeidah l'milchama. They were afraid. Shema yavo Midianim l'machar v'inakmu b'hem. If the Midianites are successful and wipe out Gidon, the Midianites are going to come back and take revenge against them. lack of emunah, even though I'm sure word had gotten out already that 300 of Gidon's men had wiped out a much larger force. Pasuk Yud. V'zevach v'tzalmuna bekarkor. So Zevach and Salmuna were hanging out in a place called Karkor. Umachaneim imam kachameshet asar elef. And they have 15,000 soldiers with them. Kol hanotarim mikol machaneh bnei kedem. That which remained, and listen, v'hanoflim mea v'esrim elef ish olev charev. 120,000 had already fallen. So that's how we knew last week when we said that the initial army of Midian was 135,000 people. Because 120,000 had fallen already, and 15,000 remain with Zevach with Salmuna. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayal Gidon derech hashchunei ba'oalim. So Gidon there was a group of tents, Mikedem leNovach v'Yagbaha, to the east of two Jewish cities, Novach and Yagbaha. Vayachet ha'machaneh ve'hamachaneh yabetach. They sort of sneaked up on the Midianite camp through this subterfuge, through the tent city. They didn't come directly, they went behind. Again, Gidon is showing natural generalship. By the way, we're talking about Bedouins. Look at Rashi. Derech Eretz Kedar va'Arav. We're talking about Arabia. Hashochnim b'midbar ba'oalim. They dwell in tents. Sheroim miknet tamid. They are shepherds. Ve'ein darim b'vat. They don't live in homes. He's describing the Bedouins have been around for thousands of years, traveling the same deserts, and the Israelites, right? The Ishmaelim, when Yosef, 1,500 years before, you're talking about at least 500 years before, is sold by the brothers to an Orchat Yishmaelim, traveling on the way between Canaan and Mitzrayim. So the Bedouins have been around for ages. And you can see what Novach v'Yagbaha, says Rashi, Hem Arei Yisrael, right? They're Jewish cities. He wanted to come sort of as a purpose, like a derech hakalaton means a crooked way, not a straight way. Again, it's a way to frighten the Midianite camp because they came from a place that they weren't expected. Pasuk Yud Beis. Vayanusu Zevach with Salmuna. So Zevach and Salmuna ran away. Vayadof achrem. They chased after him. Vayal Kodesh Shnei Malchei Midian et Zevach with Salmuna v'chol ha'machneh achivri. They captured the two kings and they wiped out the whole machneh. Vayashav Gidon ben Yoash min ha'milchama. Gidon returns milmala hecharas, while the sun is still high. And they went back to that city of Sukkot, which was that city that they had asked bread from. And they found one of the youths of that city, and they got some intelligence from this youth. He got the names of the 77 leaders of Sukkot from this youth that they found outside of the city of Sukkot. Remember, I told you, I'm going to come back after capturing them. You cursed me, in a sense. You didn't want to feed us. You already have zevach with samuna, so therefore we feel comfortable giving you food. So and he whipped them, he punished them these 77 with the thorns. So different pshatim. Some claim he punished them by tormenting, just as a caning. Others say he forced the elders to torment the other men. It was pain and humiliation with these thorns and briars. Okay. However, Yud Zayin that Migdal Pnuel Natatz by Arogat Ansheir. This is a Jewish city. He comes to Pnuel and destroys it and kills all the people in the Jewish city. How does Gidon have the right to do that? It's Moired b'Malchus, says the Rishonim. Right? A king, we're going to see by David HaMelech, Gidon is not a declared king, but in this manner, he's considered the king.
But until then, asking for any help from the various tribes was all voluntary. Whether it came to fight the battles, not all the Shvatim partook in it.
So it says, so first of all, the Radak says, "Shetoshavei Pnuel hitbatzru b'migdal v'nilchamu b'Gidon v'lachen hargam." This was a fortress city, and when Gidon comes to them, just like he came to Sukkot, so right now we don't know he was going to kill them, but they fought Gidon. So in fighting back, they ended up getting killed because they were in the fortress fighting Gidon.
Which Nachala was?
By the way, the Rabbad says that he had it in mind that he was going to kill them. That he was going to kill them, when he first told them. What were you saying, Ellen?
In which Nachala were these cities, Sukkot and Pnuel?
It doesn't say. They're in the Galil. We know they're in the Galil.
So they would be probably from which Shevet?
No, it doesn't give us where. It doesn't give us where Pnuel and Sukkot are. It doesn't tell us where. Oh, here, Pnuel is city located on an important crossroads above the Yabok stream. Jacob passed through the city on his way from Gilad to Sukkot, and it was rebuilt in the days of Yerovam, son of Nevat. It's in the area, Ephraim. That's the area, but it doesn't. We don't know for sure which Shevet it was.
And did they get punished because they didn't have confidence that Hashem would help Gidon?
Yes. And like we said, in a sense, it's a Moira b'Malchus. If the king and they're, it's rebelling against Jewish leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very important episode in our history. Very important episode in our history. These little pieces of facts here that a Jewish general took it out on the people who are supposed to help the Jewish army.
I think this is the first example, however, of a Navi or a leader, a Shofet, deciding that he was going to use that type of punishment. You don't see that from Yoshua on. This is the first time you hear this.
That's correct. Now, I just wanted to point out. I mean, we have a Jewish army today, and there are people who don't support the Jewish army today. So, or maybe they do support. I'm just saying we always have to, try to bring these lessons that we see in the times of the Nevi'im to our circumstances as well. The importance of the Jewish people rallying around the people in charge of defending the country. And certainly Gidon was doing that at that time. And you see that, by the way, Gidon is not a word is said negative about any of this episode.
Okay.
We'll see other negatives are said, but not about this episode. Yud Ches. Vayomer el Zevach ve'el Tzalmuna. So this is a very strange episode here. Gidon says to these two kings, Eifo ha'anashim asher haraktem b'tavor. Where are the Jewish people that you killed in Har Tavor? Vayomru, they say, Kamocha kemohem. They were like you. Echad ketor b'nei ma. They looked like kings. Strange pasuk. Next pasuk, Vayomar, Gidon says, yeah, Achai b'nei imihim. They were my relatives. Chai Hashem, Lu achayitem otam. If you would have kept them alive, lo arakti etchem, we wouldn't have killed you, or I wouldn't have killed you. But you did kill them. So, to make some sense of this, I found by Rabbi Hattin, he says like this. The most plausible understanding is that this Midianite camp, when they first heard of Gidon building up troops, and they were at the foot of Mount Gilboa, besides gathering their own substantial force to counter the Israelites, they took the precaution, the Midianites, of sizing strategic Mount Tabor and perhaps taking some of Gidon's own family as hostages in order to avert or at least delay an Israelite attack. And that is why it says that there's, they looked like him because they were his family, and Gidon responds in a similar way. That's just one potential pshat. But this is also a foreshadowing, because the Midianite kings see in Gidon sort of the stature of royalty. They say he looks like Bnei Melech. The first time since Yoshua and the Shoftim that the concept of Malchus is brought up. It's been lurking in the background. These Shoftim are not kings, but all of a sudden they talk about Melech. So, Pasuk Chaf, Vayomer liyeter b'choro. Gidon had a b'chor, Yeter. Kum harogotam. He wants to have Yeter, his son, kill these kings. However, lo shalaf anar charbo kiarei. The son didn't want to do it. He was afraid, ki odenu nar. So Vayomer Zevach v'Tzalmuna kumata ufka banu. Zevach and Tzalmuna say to Gidon, you kill us. Ki cha'ish kavuraso. Either because of a humiliation, a king should kill another king. We don't want to be killed by a nar. Or other Rishonim explain that they understood that Gidon was strong, and with one blow he'll kill them rather than have them suffer. So therefore, Vayakam Gidon vayarog et Zevach v'Tzalmuna vayikach et hashoaranim asher b'tzavarek malehem. They had special ornaments on their camels, and he took them. Gidon took them. And the Barbanel, in fact, says, so first of all, Gidon wanted his son to do it because
how old is he? Yes,
Gidon is thinking, well, maybe he will follow me in my path, and this would be a good way for him to start.
how old is he? No, you don't know.
He's a nar.
No.
Under 13?
Oh no.
I don't see any Meforshim talk about what his age.
No.
Okay, I wouldn't say he's under 13, but we don't know.
Wouldn't the rest of the Shevet Ephraim be upset that Gidon killed out some of the cities and punished the people of those cities?
But I don't know. I don't know if it was I don't know if they were Ephraim cities. We don't know who Pnuel and Sukkot are. We mentioned that this was in a location that eventually Yerovam ben Nevat, who came from Ephraim, establishes his kingdom. But we don't know whether it was which Shevet Pnuel and Sukkot belonged to.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make a difference. Gidon is meting out the punishment to the cities that did not help him. But as I said, the Abarbanel says, "You are ish gadol b'gibor, kvod lanu lamut b'dei gibor, masher b'dei nar." That's how the Abarbanel is. Okay. Pasuk Chav Beis. Vayomru ish Yisrael el Givon, mishal banu gamata gam bincha gam ben bincha. The Jews are offering Gidon Malchus. For him and his son, a dynastic Malchus. First time that we see this in Sefer Shoftim. Remember, the people saw many miracles happen through Gidon. So they want him to become the king. That's why I'm saying there was some foreshadowing with the comments of Zevach Samuna that you are like a Bnei Melech, right? However, in keeping with the theme that we started tonight, Gidon had a lot of humility. Vayomer alehem Gidon lo emshol ani bachem, lo imshol b'ni bachem, Hashem imshol bachem. Gidon defers and says, no, I will not rule, neither will my son. Hashem will rule. Who does it sound like? Remember, when the people come to Shmuel a few hundred years from now and ask them for a king, so Shmuel gets very upset. He says, Hashem is your ruler. Well, here is Gidon saying the same thing. Here's the same thing. Says the Musar and says the Tanchuma. Heim amru shlosha dvarim. The people said to him three things. You should rule, your son, your grandson. V'hu amar lahem shlosha dvarim. He also responded three ways. Not me, not my son, and that Hashem should rule. Amar la Kadosh Baruch Hu chayecha shani mamid mimcha ben sheimloch sholosh shanim keneged shlosha dvarim she'amarta. The next shofet we're going to learn about is Avimelech, the son of Gidon, who is going to rule as king. Because of it's as a reward for the fact that he had humility. Because of Kavod Anova, says the Musar Navi Minei Chazina, we see Managat Gidon from the behavior of Gidon. Shaya Muchta b'midat hanava. His major midah was humbleness. Sharehu Amar Livnei Ephraim, right? The comments that he made to the Ephraim, Alot Tov, Olalot Ephraim, and B'tzir Aviezer. Ha'olalot, which are the end harvesting, Heiman Avim Shabotzim Vasof, Vabatzir Heiman Avim Shabotzim Batchila, V'nei Gidon Haya Matchil B'milchama. Gidon started the war of Bnei Ephraim, Hayu HaGomrim. V'hu Amar Lahem Shagmar Shlem Yoter Tov Me'atchalat Shalom. He told the Ephraim people that their finishing was better than my beginning. V'natan kol ha'gdula v'kavod lahem. Umi she'ein bo midat hanava lo yavo laktin masav ulagdil maseh acherim. Somebody who's not modest is not going to praise the other person. That they wanted to know nim lo amshalat aleihem. He said, Hashem yimshol bachem. Zeo mishum shekol nitzchonot shayu lo hein einan shelo. They were not his victories. Kim shalom makom. Ve'en lecha midat anava gdola mizu. To place all your victories in the hands of Hashem, there's no greater anava than that. Ulefichach Avimelech beno shenitga'eh v'harag et echav lo hayta lo tkuma. In the end, Avimelech becomes haughty, kills his brother, and therefore he fell. He didn't learn the message of humility from his father. Chavdalad. Vayomer alehem Gidon, eshala mikem she'ela. I will ask from you one thing. Tnuli ish nezem shlalo. The Arabs would wear nose rings. The Midianites, Midian is from Hagar. The Midian is one of the Bnei Keturah. Hagar is the mother of Yishmael. So Midian, because remember, over there, I'm going to give you another proof. There, when it says that the brothers sold Yosef to an Orchat Yishmaelim, when they end up coming to Potiphar, they says Vaham Danim. So Midian, Yishmael, they're all Arabs. Arabs wear nose rings. So after killing all of these 135,000 people, the Bnei Yisrael had a lot of golden nose rings. That was the shlal. Ki nizmei zahav lahem ki Yishmaelim hem. The pasuk itself says that they were Yishmaelim, as I explained. The Mitzudas David says, Ki Midian hayam ibnei Keturah, shehi Hagar, em Yishmael, vehem ha'achim, they're brothers. Ukashem echad yikor v'derech echad lem lasim nezem ba'af. The Arabs wear nose rings in their nose. Like it says, Vayavru anashim midyanim, vayimkeru et Yosef laishmaelim. That's what the Radak says. What is he going to do with the nose rings? Vayomru naton titein. So the people said, yes, we will give. Vayifrusu et hasimla, vayashlichu shama ish nezem shlalo. What does it say? They spread out a garment, and on the garment they cast these nose rings. Vahi mishkal nizmei hazav asher sha'al 1,700 zav, 1,700 weight of gold. Levad min hasharonim vantifot. That's besides the pendants, the crescents. These are like flags. And Vigdei ha'argaman, that's the royal purple. Shal malchei Midian, that's what the kings of Midian would wear. Levad min anakot, asher b'tzavrek maleim. Besides there were various chains and necklaces that the camels were. Now, the argaman is a reddish purple dye extracted from the spiny dye murex brandaris, a type of sea snail. Now, this is not, there's another one that we get the tchelas from.
Yeah.
But the argaman came also from a snail. I'm reading from Steinsaltz. Early documents indicate that wool dyed with this substance was 4 times more expensive than other dyed wool. In addition to its frequent mention in the Bible, right, argaman, alongside the blue dye utilized in the Mishkan, it was also used for the covers of the tabernacle vessels and the vestments of the high priest. The dye also appears in external sources beginning in the 14th century BCE. We also see it in the Roman period. Purple dye was used mainly by priests, kings, and ministers. Due to its importance and expense, its production was monitored, and it was prohibited to freely trade in it. That's what we say, the royal purple. And that's the argaman. Pasuk Chav Zayin, Vayasoto Gidon le'efod. Gidon made it into a belt. Rashi says, Lios lizikaron al tshuah gdolah. This was to remember the great victory that Hashem gave them. Lirot kama haya chelam kaved. And it so much gold, it showed how big the Midianite forces were. That's where this gold came from. It was supposed to be a mascara. However, That's going to be a problem. Vayatsego tobi iroba afra. Gidon lived in Afra, and that's where they hung up the ephod. However, it led to a problem. Vayiznu kol Yisrael acharav sham. They started worshiping it. Klal Yisrael is worshiping it as an avodah zarah. And vayili Gidon uleveto ulemokesh. And this becomes a stumbling block for Gidon and his family. After Misas Gidon, says Rashi. After Misas Gidon. So we get a few summary psukim. This was Midian's last hurrah. They were now subjugated, and they never raised their head again. The land was quiet for 40 years. Vayelech Yerubal ben Yoash, Gidon, remember? The one who fought with Baal. But he's not Gidon anymore, he's now Yerubal. Ule Gidon hayushivim bonim. Gidon was busy. He had 70 sons. Yotzei Recho, ki nashim rabot hayulo. He had many wives. Ufilaksho asher bishchem. He had a pilegesh. What's a pilegesh? Isham yuchedet leish b'lo ktuba u'b'lo kiddushin.
Concubine.
I mean, but halachically,
Is
remember,
that Hagar?
Yaakov also had Bila and Zilpah. They were pilagshim. So what's the difference between a pilegesh and a wife? You are miyache this woman without a ksuba, and there's no kiddushin. So
What is she? Just a baby maker.
He had a pilegesh in Shechem. Yalda lo gam hi ben, vayasem et shmo Avimelech, and this pilegesh gives birth to the son that is going to be our character for the next perek, Avimelech.
Oh, I say this is different than the 70 sons. This is not
Yes.
a full son. A son of a Pilegesh is also.
Besides the 70 sons, the Tanakh says he had a son from a pilegesh.
The other 70 are from wives.
Says the Minchas Ketana. This is Ba Katuva Saper Bignuto. This is a bad statement about Gidon. Shahayalo Nashim Rabim. He had many wives, Vanim Rabim. Vahayalo Istapik, they should have had enough with that.
Right.
Vuhulo Kenasa Elish Lakach Gam Pilegesh, Vyadulo Ben. And then that Ben Asa Kolara Nemar Bekatu. Avimelech is going to be a real handful.
Are we to assume that all of them were wives except for this one Pilegesh?
Yes.
He could have had children with wives and other Pilegesh, other concubines.
Yeah, but the Tanakh says this. The Tanakh says that the rest of them were nashim, which usually means wives, and then this one was the Pilegesh.
Right.
That's all what the Tanakh says.
The psukim are sounding like he's acting like a melech.
Said, well, not really. He turned down the Malchus. No, he went into retirement. And his retirement was to have children. That was his retirement.
So why would he choose? Why would one of his later sons become after him rather than the ones who were older?
You were going to see how the rise of Avimelech.
Okay.
We're going to see. By the way, the Meforshim don't see Gnus in the 70 wives. Mikivan shayu lo harbe banim bevadai lo harbe nashim, aval ena katuv beganei oto b'shel kach. Adarabba mashma shroa b'kach mishum tova bracha.
Right.
This is not a problem of lo yarbel lo nashim. He's not a king, and it's not seen as a problem. The Barbanel says la'achar milchama b'midyanim. Parash Gidon Mahanagat Hatzibur. He left politics. That's it. He's no more, he became a gentleman farmer. Period. He got, listen, if you had a lot of money, you could marry a lot of wives and have a big family. Says the Pasuk Lamed Beis, Vayama Gidon ben Yoash, here comes two words, B'seva Tova. There's only 3 people in all of Tanakh that pass away B'seva Tova. Says Avos Rab Nosson, Shlosha Elu Nemar Lahem B'seva Tova. Let me see the.
Who are they? Avram?
It says by Avram and by David. Hang on. Gimel Shene, I'm reading from Breshis Rabbah, Mem Daled. Amrei Shlokish. Gimel Haim Shenemar Bahem B'Seva Tova. Avraham Haya Shavelo, David Shavelo, Gidon Lo Shavelo. Lama Vayas Oto Gidon LeEfod Lavodas Kochavim. So it says like this. The Musar Nevi'im says, Ziknei Torah, Talmidei Chochamim Kozman Shemaskinim Daitan Mit Yashav Elohim. As they get older, you know what? They get wiser. However, Ziknei Amaretz Kozman Shemaskinim Daitan Mit Turefes Elohim. They, as they get older, they get stupider. Lachein Avram v'David Shayu B'nei Torah Kishabal L'dei Zikna Odo Sifu Lasot Masim Tovim. They continue to do Maisim Tovim v'Zikna Ita Shavelahem. Aval Gidon Shaya Ish Pashut Kimo Shamru Alav B'Rosh Hashanah Chafei Sha'aya Mekalei Kalim Lachein Kishabal L'dei Zikna Bal L'dei Yeridas Ruchnius. When he got older, he had spiritual fall. Gidon Chas v'Sholom never built that ephod for Avodah Zarah. Sharei Pirish Rashi Shaltau Zoli Zikaron Al Shvat HaMakom Larot Ad Kama Haya Chilam Kaved Shemizmecha Shvem Haya Kol Hazav Hazeh. Like we read Rashi, he did it as a memorial of the great victory. That look, all of this gold came from the nose rings of all the people we killed. B'chol Zap Gam Nechshav Allah, but he has the Bekam Ki Lo Haya Kilu haya chacham haya ro'eh hanolad. Who is a chacham? Who sees what's going to happen. V'haya nizar melotzi mitachat yado davar she'efshar latzeit mizeh takala. To create something, he knew that the people were worshiping Baal and worshiping Asherah. Now he's going to create something out of gold. He should have had better forethought. Vayama Gidon vayikaver bekever Yoash aviv ba'afra v'yazri. And unfortunately, we have to read the last pasuk. Vayi kasher meit Gidon vayashuvu bnei Yisrael vayiznu achrei abalim vayasimu lehem bal brit Elohim. Everything is happening again. It's a cycle. They're falling backwards, and they're worshiping the Baal. They also worship something called Bal Brit Elohim. Excuse me. They worship something called Bal Brit Lelohim. It says Zezvuv Bali Karon. This is a fly. They would make an image of a fly. So they would keep it in their pocket. And when they would remember, they would take it out and kiss it. So they were really deep in Avodah Zarah. They did not do chesed with the house of Gidon either. Now, the only thing I wanted to comment, Rabbi, now who else made something out of gold that was worshipped?
The calf, the Egel Hazahav.
Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen. It is intriguing. I'm reading from Rabbi Hattin. It is intriguing to note the similarities between this account and the narrative of the golden calf, cast by Aaron. In both cases, a leader figure gathers golden earrings from the people and with the best of intentions fashions them into an innocuous object that quickly becomes an idolatrous fetish. There's some commentaries in Shemot that Aaron gathers the gold in a knotted garment, just as Gidon does here. The overall thrust of the narrative is the same. When precious materials are utilized to make a tangible symbol of something grand, even when the process is carried out with the purest of objectives, there will always be those who will seize the opportunity to turn the symbol into something else entirely to serve their own interests. By the way, Gidon is mentioned in Tehillim by Asaph in Tehillim 83. He talks about the princes of Orev, Ze'ev, Zebach, and Salmuna that they were destroyed at Ein Dor. So that Gidon is mentioned many times. So, for example, Yeshayahu in Perek 9 mentions the fact that you have smashed them like on the day of Midian. And also Yeshayahu in Perek Yud talks about striking down of Midian at the rock of Orev. So Gidon, we have to be inspired by his personal struggle to overcome self-doubt, by his singular victory over his people's foes, but yet sadly disappointed by the events of his twilight years. This Gidon had defeated his own fears in order to overpower the Midianites, drive them from the land. And so crushing had been his triumph that his compatriots had asked him to become their king. But humble Gidon refused, reminding the people that their true loyalties must be to God. In the end, Gidon's tenure was tarnished by the fashioning of this golden ephod that generated into coarse idolatry. But it's important to look at this. This is the first discussion in Tanakh about the issue of a king. And we know that the tribes of Israel have fallen away from their mission and are embracing Canaanite idolatry. And they have jettisoned the basic unity that the early stages of the conquest needed. They haven't developed a stable political system that could impose order. Judges come, judges went, but none ever succeeded in rallying the tribes as one. And no judge ever produced a child that could rule in his or her place. The demise of the judge spells the end of the all too brief period of peace and permanence associated with their rule.
Wasn't it considered like a ganai that Bnei Yisrael wanted a flesh and blood king?
It is considered a ganai, and as we said, Shmuel is going to tell them that, and Gidon tells them that way before. So this is the first time that the issue of kingship comes up, and of course it's going to come back. But we see the tremendous milas of Gidon, and perhaps some of the things that may have led him astray. What does it say here? Although Gidon was not officially appointed ruler, the large number of his wives and children indicates that he conducted himself like a king. He maintained a quasi-royal court that enabled him to support his large family. After his death, the leadership could have been divided among his 70 sons. However, Gidon's son Avimelech, by a concubine, seeks exclusive power. And that's how we're going to see that Avimelech is not like his father Gidon. Unfortunately, where we normally say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, here it fell very far from the tree.
Well, he
And it
seems
says-
to have had him at a later age in his life, and he probably didn't have as much influence over him as a young father might have.
I like that you said that, Alan, but we don't have any riots for that.
Right.
Take care of them. If you have 70 sons, tell me how much time could you spend with them?
By the way, the other thing, when it says b'seivat tova, what that means is shelo ra'ad hereg banav b'chayav. He didn't see any of his children die in his own lifetime. That's one of the, when it says, when someone dies b'seivat tova, that's one of the attributes. Any other comments, questions, ka'aros, or
There must be an analysis of when it says Yerubal and when it says Gidon. When the last pasuk, it says it both together.
but so remember, Yerubal became his like nickname after he destroyed the Baals of his fathers in the town. So now, and in fact, Shmuel HaNavi, when they refer to Gidon, they don't refer to him as Gidon, they refer to him as Yerubal. But you're right, we went back and forth, sometimes Gidon, sometimes Yerubal. I didn't see the Derech Bina commented on that, but there must be a way to analyze that better. Absolutely.
Is the word Argamon, isn't that also used in
In the Megillah
Megillah
Esther.
Esther? Right.
Yeah, but same thing, the royal purple.
Is it used anywhere else?
And it's used Cheles Vargamon in the Chumash when they were
Sure.
building the Mishkan.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
any other,
Basically, what you're saying is the seeds for kinship were already in the minds of Bnei Yisrael even way before
yeah,
Shmuel.
yeah, but they weren't ready for it. Politically, they were not stable, they were not unified. They were also, we see their connection to ethical monotheism wasn't strong enough yet because they were so involved in the Canaanite idolatry. So.
Yeah.
In the end, we're going to have to try to, when we finish Shoftim, we're going to have to see, what period of Jewish history does this seem to be most, reminiscent of, this rise and fall, rise and fall. Throughout, we don't see that throughout the Gaul. We don't really see, that's our question. What parallel does this have for us? It's not like we have ups and downs and ups and downs. We have either, it's down. This was a very unique period in Jewish history, the way we're seeing, but it occurs later on because after David HaMelech, after Shlomo, we also have a lot of evil kings, and then periodically they would have a tzaddik like Chizkiah HaMelech or Yoshio HaMelech. So there was similar waxing and wanings that we're going to see during the Malchus period as well. But later on in Jewish history, either in Bayit Sheni or of course during the Golus, we'll have to see if we can think about some kind of parallelisms later. Okay, any exciting things this week for anybody?